What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
If you're the guy who can't finish a sandwich, you think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching and listening to 40 Days and Counting with your boy, where I do 2 live stream shows per week. One Tuesday, 6 p.m. One Friday, 8 a.m. I know it is a little late this morning. Apologies. But I had to make sure I had my Buzzer fam right. You know, we're now Buzzer fam. That's the new app, new streaming service. Shout out to the whole team at Buzzer that is really putting together something really cool for sports fans and sports creators and reporters and journalists alike, where we can all come together and watch sports content without all the noise of the rest of the social media stuff that comes with X and some of these other accounts. So that was the only reason why we were a little delayed, but I wanted to make sure that was right. And if you're curious about what Buzzer is, search it, man. BZZR. Search the app, find the app, download, and join, and you can get verified sports content from all different sports creators, including myself, as we celebrate today, the first day of the WNBA season. So that's really exciting over there at Buzzer. And again, we're streaming live 40 Days and Counting on Buzzer to go along with our normal spots that we stream live to. So shout out to that team there for helping me out this morning to get me up and ready to go here. And this is going to be a good one. We got a great show lined up for you this morning. We're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs. You got 2 teams taking commanding leads, both number 1 seeds in the Eastern and Western Conference, went up 2-0 in their series. You got the Cavs going down 0-2 to the Pistons, and then you got the Lakers really salty about what happened in their Game 2 matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder. We got plenty of sound from J.J. Redick, plenty of sound from Austin Reeves about what they feel like has been uneven refereeing, to say the least. Probably the nicest way to say it, because those guys were pretty hot during the game. They were pretty hot after the game as well. So we'll talk about that. We'll also preview tonight's action. Some good games happening tonight. Game 3 in Philadelphia. Sixers trying to avoid going down 0-3 to the New York Knicks, who are now dealing with something with OG Anunoby. It is an injury. I was going to say, I can't say it's severe or not severe, because the word was hamstring strain, but then the word after that was this is a quote-unquote very minor hamstring strain. Not sure exactly what that is. I've never heard of a hamstring strain being very, very minor, but it seems like the Knicks are at least pushing the conversation and pushing the story that they've dodged some major bullet with OG Anunoby, who left early in their Game 2 win with a hamstring injury. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. We also got Spurs and T-Wolves, that series shifting to Minnesota. Big Game 3 after the Spurs dominated the T-Wolves to win Game 2 after dropping Game 1 to Minnesota. So good action happening there. Interesting stuff happening with WWE that we get to at the end of the show as well. So this is going to be a good one. Again, 40 Days and Counting. Streaming live, multiple spots, including on YouTube. Shout out to the YouTube fam. Apologies to everybody for me getting in a little late, but shout out to the YouTube fam who always been holding me down for this whole 2026 since we started the 40 Days run, and we continue in the 40 Days run on these Tuesdays and Fridays, and they've been a great, part of this experience. So shout out to the YouTube fam. Shout out to the fam on X, where we're also streaming live. You guys are the best. Love y'all. And, of course, shout out to the Instagram fam. If you want to follow me on X Watch, you can watch that on EJ_Stewart. You want to watch on Instagram, go to IG Live, search Action EJ, and your boy is streaming live. And like I said, also now streaming on Buzzer. Again, if you guys want to learn more about Buzzer, make sure you head to buzzer.com or download the BZZR mobile app. Really, really, really cool stuff happening on there. And I'm really excited to continue to do more content for them. Me and Kendall Stewart, who you guys are very familiar with because he's been on 40 Days of Counting and 40 Days and 40 Nights. We had the Kendall Fridays. Can't do Kendall Fridays this time around because unlike me, he has an actual real job to sit around, and he actually has work to do, so he can't come on. He was able to come on, obviously, Friday evenings, but Friday morning, I can't have him on here at 8 a.m. Getting ready while he has to go to work. So that's the only reason why we don't have Kendall Fridays, but we'll certainly have Kendall back probably on a Tuesday coming up soon. But it was really cool. Last night we did our first NBA draft show. We launched an NBA draft show exclusively for Buzzer. This is, we're a new generation fan, but this is a Buzzer exclusive show, Difference Makers, where we talk NBA draft. We'll be doing shows all the way leading up to the NBA draft. That's going to be live every Thursday. So if you want to catch, again, more EJ Stewart, New Generation Media content, Buzzer is going to be one of the places you're going to want to pop up and show support, because the NBA draft show we did yesterday I thought was phenomenal. We're going to have a lot of fun guests throughout the time. We're going to have a lot of fun commentary throughout the time, prospect breakdowns, everything you want to learn about this NBA draft, which is coming up, by the way, on Sunday. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of the show. It is coming up on Sunday. That is going to be a huge deal. A lot of teams are going to be praying to the heavens that they get good draft luck. The good news for those teams is this is a draft where even if you don't get the number one pick, you probably will still end up having the opportunity to draft a star player. That's just the reality of this draft. But a lot of teams lost a lot of games on purpose for this very day on Sunday. So it's going to be very interesting to see how those lottery odds shake out. But again, 40 days and counting, coming at you live here. This is going to be a fun one. Let's get the ball rolling. Let's waste no more time. And let's continue with the conversation with the Los Angeles Lakers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the Thunder, they go up 2-0 in this series. They won a game that was it was competitive. I thought the Lakers fought. There were plenty of moments where I thought this game was about to get out of hand. Yes, the Thunder won 125-107, but this was a game that was in the balance relatively so for deep into the third quarter. So the Lakers, they got a good game from Austin Reeves. They've been waiting for him to really break out, and he did. He had 31 points. LeBron James had 23 points. So they got the requisite scoring you would think you would need to have any shot against the Thunder from their two stars. And, of course, they don't have Luka Doncic, who would be their third star. The problem was they still had trouble stopping the Thunder. So you had a big game from A.J. Mitchell, who, I mean, we want to talk about some of the most underrated guys in the league. A.J. Mitchell is dynamite. And he came into this season. I think a lot of people didn't know what to expect from him, as he got a lot more minutes than than what was expected, and he played great throughout the regular season. He's now transitioned that into a really good postseason, and he had a great game too. He was phenomenal. Jared McCain coming off the bench was just dynamite. He had everything working. It's hard to fathom still how the Oklahoma City Thunder could land a player the talent of Jared McCain. I don't really know exactly, why Daryl Morey did this. He couldn't send Jared McCain to any other team. I guess, I don't know why he's not on the Sixers, but I guess that was a money thing. But it's particularly odd to see him go to the defending champs. And this is a guy who was lined up to potentially be Rookie of the Year last year had he played the entire season. So McCain, who has been limited minutes throughout this postseason, got a lot of minutes yesterday and had 18 points in 18 minutes and was extremely aggressive, and shot was going 4 for 5 from 3. He was awesome. And then you had what you usually get from Shea. He had 22, 7 free throws, which, will be the big deal, obviously. We're going to talk a lot about that. Chet Holmgren also was really good in this game. He had 22. The Thunder are awesome. They're a great team. Again, there's no misconceptions from me in terms of how good this team is. It's why, for Knicks fans who keep saying, keep asking me, hey, can the Knicks do it? Can they win a championship? I said, well, are the Thunder going to be the team that they're seeing at the end? And listen, basketball is basketball. The game's got to be played. But if you're asking my opinion, it's going to be hard for any team that's trying to win a championship to get past the squad. But the reality is, an element about playing the Thunder that all teams have to worry about is how they get officiated. And J.J. Redick got a technical foul in this game for being very demonstrative to the refs. Austin Reeves had a very animated conversation with the refs during the game, and then did something that I had never seen before, where Austin Reeves is going off on the refs and the whole team is huddled around. Like, it looked like the whole team. If it wasn't the whole team, it was at least 7 or 8 Lakers, LeBron being among them, huddled around having this powwow with the referees as a security guard standing between him and the refs. It did not look like it was going to ever become like super contentious, like a fight or anything like that. But it was an animated conversation with Austin Reeves going through whatever issues he had with the refs during this game. And like I said, I think it's one of those things where, as good as this team is, because they get very good whistle, this is the reality, I think it wears on teams. I think it wears on you mentally. I think it wears on you physically, because the Thunder play a physical brand of defense that beats you up, that does not then also have the they don't get the downside of being called for a lot of fouls. So you're being beat up physically by a team that is physical, strong, aggressive, and then when you're trying to guard them, you touch them and they're flailing and then they're calling fouls, and that gets in your head mentally. So it's to combine the fact that they're an extremely skilled, talented team and they're a great defensive team who legitimately, not forget about the fouls, legitimately gets steals, speeds you up, turns you over. It's a nightmare trying to face this team. And the Lakers right now are in hell. This is what the experience is facing the Oklahoma City Thunder. We knew this was going to be the case as long as they didn't have Luka Doncic, and it feels more and more likely that Luka Doncic won't be seeing the court in this series. So we could see a very quick series. This could end up being a sweep. But that has not stopped the Lakers from talking about their issues with the refereeing. And I want you guys to hear from some of those Lakers. Let's begin with J.J. Redick, who basically said that the Oklahoma City Thunder are getting away with murder.
I sarcastically said the other day they were the most disruptive team without fouling. I mean, they have a few guys that foul on every possession, and all the good defenses do. SGA gets like I don't even know, a touch foul, I guess, on the drive. There was a stretch where 4 straight possessions, our guys got absolutely clobbered trying to make an entry pass to Jackson, and Jalen Williams is grabbing his jersey with both arms. That's a turn. They're hard enough to play. They're hard enough to play if they foul, and they do foul.
And it's funny. I've been reading. I've said this a ton. This is gonna be one of those like drinking game EJ things of how many times EJ's gonna say this. Take a drink. And how many times I will say that I've recently finished reading Blood in the Garden. I'm probably one of the last Knicks fans to have read it. Not because it's not amazing, but simply because I was way too late on it. I think it came out in like 22 or whatever, and I finally got to it. Awesome book, by the way. Major shout out to Chris Herring, who did a phenomenal job with the book. But I was reading, Blood in the Garden, and in multiple references throughout that book, they mentioned how the Knicks, at that time, arguably the best defense of the generation, had a mantra and had an attitude where you set the tone physically, which means you're going to get some fouls. But because you set the tone physically, at a certain point, you kind of set the standards for what the refs end up calling for a foul for you. And because the Thunder have set the tone of how they play defense, which is going to be extremely handsy, extremely physical, the refs can't call a foul on every play. They don't want to. It's odd because then it feels like we play against them. They do, but with how they set their tone, they're not. It kind of, I think it almost like Jedi mind tricks the referees and think, okay, this is how they play. So it kind of moves the scale for acceptable defense way more skewed than it would be for most teams, because most teams don't set the tone physically the way the Thunder do. And I think teams are having problems with that. I think the Lakers are having problems with that. I think the Suns had a previous problem with that last series. I think every team that faces them has this issue, but it's strategic. It is. I don't know. Yes, we don't know for sure if Mark Daigneault, that is the word he's given to his team, and that's what he wants them to do. But it certainly feels that way. It certainly feels like this is a team that has benefited from a mindset and an attitude that is setting the tone defensively to be super physical and super handsy, and it is forcing the refs to have to adjust. And instead of just calling the game how they would call for any other team, it ends up calling it in a way for the Thunder that feels very favorable if you're a team trying to score on them. Especially when you consider when you're playing your style of defense, which is not going to be as handsy. You damn sure don't want to be as handsy playing against this team to start a game or to set a tone. And they're able to get foul calls. You're like, I can't even match their physicality because the refs won't allow it to, because the Thunder now had this reputation of being this great defensive team who legitimately get a lot of steals, legitimately get a lot of blocks, and again play a physical brand of basketball. So it's put I think the refs in a tough spot. I'm not saying they're handling it well. I'm not trying to defend them at all, but I think it's just the symptom of the Oklahoma City Thunder being the team of the NBA and how they've established themselves to the referees. And again, JJ talking about how these guys foul on every play. He's not wrong. I watched this team play. I've seen the Knicks play this team. They play an aggressive brand of basketball that you simply cannot play against them. So beating a team that's as talented that you can't play this physically is going to be a challenge, and whoever beats them It will take either the referees adjusting or an extremely well-played series for someone to beat this team 4 out of 7. Here was more from J.J. Redick because there was a couple of plays, particularly one where LeBron James drove to the basket, was knocked down by Jalen Williams, a play that I thought could have certainly been called a foul. And he gets up, he gets angry at the refs, but then he's actually kind of limping. LeBron, I kind of wonder if he was just kind of embellishing to maybe do something, but because he kind of was walking up and down the court for a couple of plays. But he's also 41. This guy legitimately could have damn near broke his hip because he definitely seemed to be bothered by it. J.J. Redick also upset with the whistle LeBron James gets.
Well, he gets clobbered on that one, with Jalen Williams coming over trying to block the shot when he spun baseline on Dort. That was in that stretch as well. LeBron has the worst whistle of any star player I've ever seen. I mean, I've been with him 2 years now. There's, again, the smaller guys, because they can be theatric, they typically draw more fouls, and the bigger players that are, built like LeBron, it's hard for them. But he gets clobbered, and he got clobbered again tonight a bunch, and that's not like a new thing. That's not specific to this crew or this series. He gets fouled a lot. That doesn't happen. I mean, guy gets hit on the head more than any player I've seen on drives, and it rarely gets called. So
yeah, I mean, that's the reality for a lot of some of the bigger players. It's very weird because I feel like, and listen, LeBron does his share of flopping, so there could be some of the referees actively trying not to be fooled by LeBron's flopping. But again, I would compare him to Joel Embiid or some of the other bigger players who tend to get a lot of foul calls, who are very excessive with their flopping, and they don't get it, where I think someone like LeBron, Karl-Anthony Towns, Nikola Jokic, some of the bigger players who play a physical brand of ball, because they don't really flop per se, those guys take contact, and the referees assume it's light or assume that it's, just part of the game, or assume that they're the aggressors, so therefore they have to give the defense some rope because of how strong these guys are. I remember Julius Randle a couple years ago was going ballistic after a game the Knicks lost to the Nets. Ironically, it might have been the last time the Knicks lost to the Nets. The Knicks have beaten them like 14 games in a row, something crazy. But I remember Randle, basically was trying to explain to the refs, like, I'm taking contact and you're not calling fouls, and the referee said something, according to Randle, something along the lines of, well, listen, you're just much stronger than the guy that you're going up against. Like, we can't expect us to call that. And he's like, my strength should have nothing to do with whether or not you're calling a foul. It's something that Shaquille O'Neal has talked about a ton. For all the times he did legitimately go to the free throw line, and teams were more than happy to send it to him. Shaq, Phil Jackson, during that stretch with the Lakers, they would always say, like, the amount of contact Shaq is taking, any normal human being would be battered and bruised and wouldn't be able to play the next day. And these are non-calls. Just to forget about the actual fouls. The non-calls they're not calling would send guys, to the injured list for a couple of weeks. So that is a reality that LeBron and other, physically imposing guys deal with. And, it is frustrating. And I think the NBA is going to have to, they're going to have to take some kind of ownership of this refereeing, I think, growing problem. It's funny. I feel like things have even shifted. I thought that Jaylen Brown was a little excessive when he talked about, flopping is ruining the NBA. But this is now going to basically be a week of basketball between Jaylen Brown from, that was Sunday, to now Lakers Thursday night going into now Friday. So now it's basically been a full week, a work week, where refereeing is taking a pretty close to center stage spotlight on the NBA playoffs, and that's the last thing the league wants. I would anticipate, at least for the next game, the Lakers get a lot of calls, and the Lakers get a much more friendlier whistle. Will that be consistent, though, for the rest of this series, however long it is? And will that be consistent for the Thunder moving forward, where they had referee them differently? I don't know. But, again, going back to that book, the NBA, went around. I think it was Russ Granick, who was the associate, commissioner at the time, went around to all 30 teams and was showing them videos of what's not going to be allowed in the NBA anymore when it came to various different rule changes. And a lot of those clips, as Derek Harper mentioned, were him hand checking guys, him guarding guys, him grabbing guys. Like the NBA made it, very clear that the way the Knicks were playing basketball was something that they were trying to outlaw, or at least trying to curb. And definitely try to limit the fighting, which was the biggest issue, the biggest concern for David Stern at the time. but also it was the play within the games and to make it less physical, to make it less of a grueling, grinded out kind of game. I don't know if the Thunder have garnered enough animosity so that the NBA ever take that kind of step where maybe they say, listen, we're going to change the way the game's being played, and they're going to look at how the Thunder are playing specifically and say, okay, that style we can't have anymore simply because the fans don't want it. That was a complaint back in the 90s, was that fans were tired of seeing the Knicks bludgeoning people and elbowing guys and starting fights and low-scoring games. They wanted to bring more offense into the game. They wanted to bring more excitement. They wanted to bring more skill into the game. The Knicks were not one of the highly skilled teams. This is kind of a tricky thing because the Thunder are getting all these calls. They play super physical, but then they also flop, and they also are really skilled. So it's not a one-for-one, apples-to-apples comparison, but it's the only one I can really think of when talking about where the league maybe could or should go with how they are officiating the Thunder moving forward. Love to hear from the chat. Love to hear from you guys what you think about the conversation about the Oklahoma City Thunder and where they're at in terms of how they get officiated. Do you feel like it's heavy-handed? Do you feel like they have an advantage going into these games? I feel like if you just sometimes basketball is simple, and sometimes we get into this game of like, and I'm probably guilty of it too because I'm a super fan, right? And I like to think I'm a little knowledgeable about the game. We get into like, oh, what's real and what's not, and trying to dispel so many misnomers and all those different things, and that's important, and we should keep doing that. But the other aspect too is the simple, which is, do fans like seeing the Oklahoma City Thunder? Because then you get these calls. Do the fans feel like the Oklahoma City Thunder get a favorable whistle? If the answer is yes, then something's got to change. I don't think, like, sometimes it's as simple as, are you serving your fans? Are you serving your customers, the people that are going to these games, by the games being played the way they are? And I'm not saying that the Thunder should somehow have some crazy disadvantage now moving forward, but it definitely feels like the perception has met reality with just how everyone involved with the game feels about the Oklahoma City Thunder and the calls they get. And I always say, for me, like, when I'm watching a game, and I'll call like I see it. I mean, the Lakers did have 21 free throws last night. The free throw discrepancy wasn't terrible, but sometimes the free throw discrepancy could also be like deceiving. You say, oh, okay, they only had 6 more free throws. What's the big deal? But maybe the Lakers deserved 40. Like, there's a reality that sometimes, like, the way the game is called, even if the free throws are even, is not how the game should have been called. Sometimes some teams foul more. Sometimes some teams should get more calls than others. So, like, I don't like to always just run to the free throw discrepancy. But, watching that game, and certainly, again, the Lakers didn't deserve the win. I didn't think that. I think they played hard. I think they played relatively okay overall. But they had too many turnovers. They could not stop McCain and Mitchell. You get 38 points combined from those guys, you're never beating the Thunder, ever. Just put that on tape. Those guys score almost 40 points combined with whatever else you're getting from Chet and Shea and Howard Zion and all those guys, you're not winning. So the Lakers had no chance to win because they couldn't stop those guards that are next to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. But you don't want to feel like the refs are tipping the scales when it comes to this, and that's what I think the NBA is going to have to maybe address. Real quickly, I also wanted to mention Austin Reeves because there was a point in this game where, again, we want to talk about just kind of like, is the game being reffed evenly? There's a jump ball that's about to happen, and the typical thing that happens with players, right? They're about to jump ball, and these players, and to be honest, I don't mind when the refs kind of like tell these guys to cut it out, because it does just kind of slow the game down and become silly at a certain point. But the players that are lined up around the circle, they're always trying to get an advantage. So they're moving last second, and they're switching rotations, they're switching spots. And it was the typical switching things you see. This was not abnormal, but it is annoying. But Austin Reeves is moving spots, trying to stop the Thunder from getting an advantage in the circle. And Ben Goebel turns around, says something to him that sent Austin Reeves, because then the next dead ball, he goes up to Goebel. He is giving him the business, and then there's plenty of lip readers out there that have said what he said to Ben Goebel. And this was Reeves explaining what happened, because a lot of people didn't know why he was so animated. And he went back to that jump ball where he said Ben Goebel was being disrespectful.
I felt like I was respectful to all of them all night. I mean, there's a million times in the past I've said way worse stuff. And when we were doing the whole tip ball, when they were switching spots, I wanted to get on the other side because they had a guy on the other side who was just trying to keep an advantage. And he turned around and just yelled in my face. I just thought it was disrespectful. You know, the whole time that was going on over there, I don't think he said much to them. I think stepped in and said something.
Yeah, and Reeves then continued about this double standard that continues to play the Lakers against the Thunder.
At the end of the day, we're grown men, and I just didn't feel like he needed to yell in my face like that. I told him that. I wasn't disrespectful. I told him if I did that to him first, I would have got a tech. I feel like the only reason I didn't get a tech is because he knew he was in the wrong. So, yeah, I felt disrespected.
Yeah, and listen, what I will say is this is a series that involves LeBron James, who did not really want to get into the fray of refereeing. Like, he was asked about what JJ said. He said, all I know is that we're down 0-2. He was asked, about the refereeing and he, about whether or not he gets bad calls. He said, I don't know. So he, at this point in his career, I always joke that he's trying to save as much money as possible for when he tries to get into the ownership stake of a new expansion team. So I know it may seem like what's $50,000. Listen, when you're about to spend $1 billion, that's a lot of money. Any money is a lot of money to spend. So I think he's like, I am saving all my coin. We're probably going to get swept by this team. I have no interest in losing money on a fruitful series where we're not going to win about whether or not I'm getting bad calls. I'm just going to play these games, play as hard as I can, and then we lose, we lose. So he had no interest in getting involved and potentially losing money. Austin Reeves will probably lose some money. Definitely lose some money for the post-game commentary because that's not supposed to happen. The NBA actually takes that really seriously when you try to step to a referee after the game to have a long, extended conversation because you're supposed to. It's a league rule to walk off the court in a speedy, timely manner. If it's shaking hands with guys, that's one thing, but to continue with grievances from the game is a big no-no. Again, this wasn't super, super contentious, but he certainly could get fined for that. You're not allowed to do that. And JJ Redick will damn sure get fined for his comments in the postgame about LeBron and about, in terms of LeBron's refereeing, and then about how the OKC Thunder get fouls. It's probably going to be money well spent in JJ's mind because the only chance they have is for the referees to change entirely how they referee this series. Even if they do, the Thunder are still much better. They still may win, but the Lakers cannot win if the referees are going to call the series the way it's being called so far. That's just reality. So he's going to spend that money. Reed's going to spend that money, and we'll see if it makes a difference. The bigger thing for the Lakers that they should be maybe optimistic about is they did, again, finally get a good game from Austin Reeves. He's been trying to work back from this oblique injury. This was the first time, and he had some bad moments where he sped up, moments where he turned the ball over and didn't look great, but the shot looks a lot better. The offensive game, the scoring aspect of his game looks a lot better. So you hope that maybe he's starting to work through whatever he was dealing with as he tried to return from that oblique injury. But Lakers lose. Thunder now up 2-0 in the series, and they'll get back onto the court on Saturday. But let's shift gears and go to the other game 2 that happened last night, which was Cade Cunningham's dominant fourth quarter that led the Pistons over the Cavs in game 2. So the Pistons now up 2-0. They've won 5 straight since going down 3-1 to Orlando Magic. So it feels like the Detroit Pistons are starting to get their sea legs. Cade Cunningham, again, this is a game where, first of all, I loved in the post game where he said, listen, I still had too many turnovers. There were still issues I had in this game. In a game where he really, it was Superman in the fourth quarter. I think he had 12, I believe, of his 25 points in the fourth quarter. He ended up having 5 turnovers, but he also had 10 assists. He was getting guys involved. He was playing phenomenal defense, as he always does. He's a great player. But I think what was striking for me watching this game, to see Cade, who's still a really young guy, what is he, 23, something like that? Let me see Cade Cunningham's age. I'm actually curious about that. But you see a young guy who's still kind of 24 years old, still, I don't think in the prime of his career, but probably entering the prime of his career in this series against 2 guys who, this to me is it's not it for Donovan Mitchell, but okay, it's he's in the prime. He's got to try to find a way to get a deep playoff run at this point in his career. And for James Harden, this is it for him. And these are big name guys. These are guys that have been faces of the NBA for the last some odd years. And to watch this young guy so badly outplay them in the fourth quarter, just to me spoke to the changing of the guard in the NBA. And I don't know what's going on with I know what's going on with James Harden. I don't know what's going on with Donovan Mitchell. I don't know. I know he made kind of weird comments about how he's not facing any pressure. He's like, pressure is, not being able to get your next meal, which is all true. It came off a little. It'd be one thing if you were playing amazing and saying this. I think in this postseason he's kind of been okay. Like, I thought last year actually he was really good in those first two games they lost to the Pacers in the first round. He didn't have any of his guys. He was carrying them. It felt a little dismissive. It felt a little like, whatever happens, happens. And I don't think that's necessarily maybe what he wanted to give off. But I think some fans certainly took it that way. And I don't know. It just he missed a big free throw late in that game. The fourth quarter came around. He did have 31 points. He was more assertive in this game than he was in the first game and in that first series they had against the Raptors. But something just seems a little off, and he was not able to match what Cade Cunningham was giving on both sides of the court for the other team. He's not as good a defender as Cade Cunningham, and Cade, because of his size and his ball handling ability, can get to pretty much anything he wants on the court offensively. And again, he had their way with him. But it was not just Cade Cunningham who was big in this game. Shout out to Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is having a postseason of his lifetime, I think you could say. Outside of not shooting the three ball well, which he did this night, he was 2 for 3 from three. He's done everything else exceptional. His mid-range and post-game has been impeccable. He's been awesome defensively. He's been awesome on the glass. He is in many ways saved Detroit's bacon when they have not gotten a lot from Jalen Duren, who only had 8 points last night. And some of these other guys who I think are slowly trying to still work their way through the postseason. It feels like some of those role guys are starting to now feel comfortable. Duncan Robinson was huge. He had 5 threes. Dennis Jenkins is starting to feel a lot more comfortable. He had a big game in this one. He had 14. He had a shot at the end of the third quarter. So it feels like some of these other guys that we were on like waiting to see, hey guys, like you're the number 1 seed. I know you guys maybe haven't been together long, but how you perform against the Magic are crazy. And it looks like maybe the lights are too bright. They look like they're starting to now find themselves here. So he got help. He got a ton of help, but a lot of it was him getting these guys good looks. But Tobias Harris was again awesome in this series, and to see him be the number 2 option on a team that's this good, that won 60 games and is in the playoffs, there's a part of me that wonders how sustainable that is for the Pistons if they're trying to win an NBA championship. Because if you're number 1 seed, that's what you're trying to do. Maybe it's not like if you lose, I don't think it's a failure or anything like that. But that certainly is what you're trying to do. That certainly is the goal. I don't know how sustainable that is, but he is playing really well. Like I don't know if this is just gonna stop, right? Like he's a veteran. He has shown that he is not afraid of these moments. And what happens sometimes is with some guys, like you've seen everything, and he's had his fair share of playoff disappearing acts. Philly fans can certainly tell you about all of them, but you just been through so many wars and been through so many fires that like. You just don't play with the level of... It is kind of like with Donovan Mitchell. Like you're not playing with the kind of pressure that maybe some of these other younger guys on the Pistons who maybe were feeling in the first round were playing with. It's like, oh my God, this is my chance to make a lot of money. This is my chance to, do something really special. We've had this amazing season. We can't let it go to waste. And maybe those guys were feeling it. Where him, again, he has been, a guy who was heralded, a guy who then became the kind of arch nemesis of a fan base. He's been through playoff successes, a lot of playoff failures that then he got blamed for. I think he's just playing very free, and he's playing with an extreme level of confidence, and that's the big thing about the playoffs to me. And that's when I'm surveying a series, is what I'm always worried about or concerned about is who are the guys that are finding rhythm, who are the guys that are finding confidence. Forget about what you did in the regular season, and in some ways forget about even your career. It's the guys who are playing well at a certain time period or a certain point in the season, when you get to this point, to kind of know how the story of the playoffs is going to go. There are plenty of guys that have become playoff heroes in the past, right? Like, I think of somebody like a Sam Cassell, who I don't think ever made an all-star team, but was playing with confidence, found rhythm in the postseason, various different moments, and hit huge shots and had huge games. I think about, obviously someone like a Robert Horry, who's obviously hit big shots, right? Super confident in stepping up and hitting those shots. There's so many guys to our history who sometimes they're not like the superstar guys or all-star guys, but you know what? They're all on scholarship, right, as they say. And these are all guys who are super talented, and some of those guys that may have those big regular seasons or have had these big careers, they go into the postseason and maybe they're dealing with something physically or the mental pressure of the playoffs. They can't handle it. And you see other guys emerge. And right now, Tobias Harris is certainly emerging as one of the stars of this postseason. Is unlikely. He's one of the unlikeliest stars we've seen. But there's no question he is playing at an extremely high level. So Pistons guy feel good about where they're at. Feels like they've righted their ship in a major way. But again, for the Cavs, this feels like they're playing for their Cavalier careers. Pretty much everybody on this team. I don't know if they have to necessarily win this series in order for there not to be major changes, but they certainly can't go down how it appears like they might go down, which is these are two close competitive games. It would not shock me at all if the Cavs were able to come back and win these next two games and make it a long, deep series where it goes back to Detroit tied 2-2. But again, Donovan Mitchell, it just feels like if he's your best player, you're just not good enough to win a championship. Is the feeling I have watching him in this game, watching him in the last few years, is he is supremely talented. He's obviously supremely athletic, but he needs somebody else on his team to either be a 1A or 1B to him or someone that's a better player and a better closer. So he could be a Robin as opposed to a Batman, per se. As good as he is, he's not doing enough to lift the other guys on the team. He's not doing enough defensively, and with only 3 assists in this game, he's not really lifting those other guys offensively either. But I don't want to make this all about Donovan Mitchell because I've made a ton about Donovan Mitchell already. I mean, James Harden was another disaster performance. I think I saw in 4 of the last 9 playoff games he's played, he's had more turnovers than field goals, including the last 3 games in a row, I think. Definitely in 2 of the last 3. He had 4 turnovers last night, which actually isn't a huge number, though he had a ton in the fourth quarter. He only had 3 field goals. He was 3 for 13. And he was minus 15 up there on the floor. There were moments where he was guarding Cade Cunningham. That was a coaching thing I didn't understand late in the game. And I was like, why is James Harden guarding Cade Cunningham? And this was the reason why, when they traded for him, I had a lot of reservations about Cleveland being able to, turn their season. They turned the season around already, but being able to kind of like get back to being the class of the East and get through the Eastern Conference was late in games. You have to play those 2 guys together. At least that's the thought process. And those are those guys being Harden and Mitchell, and that's a very bad defensive backcourt if those are the guys you have to play together. Having to be committed to those guys, and then they're out there, Dean Wade out there or Jalen Tyson. Jalen Tyson's a good defender, and Wade tries hard enough, and he certainly tries to be disruptive, but it's just not enough defense. It's not enough size, and the fact that the best matchup they had in a closing game in late important possessions is to have James Harden guarding Cade Cunningham speaks to a team that's just completely flawed. Evan Mobley, while he was really good defensively, did not have a great performance offensively. The Pistons, I think, because of their physical front court, have been able to take him away a little bit. Jared Allen was really good in this game. I actually thought he probably should have closed the game as opposed to Evan Mobley. The one thing I saw in this game that I'll be curious how desperate and how creative Kenny Atkinson will be. Late in that game, it was not on purpose. It was on purpose in that they were going to switch every screen, I think. But late in that game, there was at least one possession where Evan Mobley had to guard Cade Cunningham. And I thought he moved his feet well. I thought he forced him into a tough shot, and it was a pretty bad miss. The guy's a former defensive player of the year. He's an awesome guy who can guard positions we think kind of like 5 through 3. Cade's a unique talent. I would consider giving a few possessions, especially late in close games, of putting Evan Mobley on Cade Cunningham. To be honest, if it's not going to be, Dennis Schroeder is too small, Keon Ellis probably too small, and then we had the Harden Mitchell, which is too small. This is not a good team to have to guard. Max Strus was guarding Cade Cunningham for stretches of this game. They don't have anybody to guard this guy. The guy's a 6'7", 6'8" point guard. I know many teams don't. But the fact that they don't even have like a bigger wing guy, like the Knicks have an OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges, or the Magic, they have bigger guards that at least give them some kind of opportunity, right? Like Jalen Suggs is a 6'5" guard, right? They have guys that they can at least give some kind of resistance to. Anthony Black is 6'7", they don't have anybody that's in that 6'7" range that can guard these kind of guys. It's a deeply flawed roster from that standpoint. Evan Mobley is their best perimeter defender and their best interior defender. I think at a certain point in time, what difference does it make if you have, I know you're worried about the glass, but you can't stop this guy. What difference does it make if you can kill him glass if Kate Cunningham's getting into everything he wants and getting to every spot he wants? If he keeps getting to his spots, he's not going to miss these shots. And he's getting the guys involved, so he's killing you in every way. I would consider putting Evan Mobley on him. You can't do it for the whole game just because you'll get too cross-matched. But there'll certainly be times in the game and certain lineups you'll put out there where you could probably get away with hiding. You got to hide a lot of guys on the team. But you could probably hide Harden on some of these other guys. Hide Harden on Thompson. Hide Harden on Mitchell Robinson or Duncan Robinson. There are some other guys that I think you could hide some of these guys on and still get away with getting Mobley on him for some time. I think that's going to be important. It's an adjustment I would make in the fourth quarter of this next game if this is a close game. Is you'd have to play double big. You'd have to go with Allen out there, which is probably what they don't want to do. But I think you got to just live with that. Let Allen guard Mobley, probably Duran. And it's going to force maybe a tricky matchup on Tobias Harris. But Tobias Harris is killing these guys anyway. So I put Wade on Harris, and I would then put Mobley on Kate Cunningham to close these games. I'm curious to see if that's an adjustment that they think. I'm curious if it's something that's even being talked about among Cavs land and how they feel about the series so far. But I liked what I saw from that one possession. I know it's only one possession that I'm bringing top of time. I was like, wait a minute. This guy is the most athletic guy on the team, and he's 6'11". He's got long arms. He's not accustomed to guarding guys on the perimeter, but I think they don't have good defenders. They don't have their guards can't defend. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna just live with Harden and Mitchell guarding him? That doesn't make any sense. So that would be one adjustment, one tweak I would do if I was the Cavs for game 3. So not looking good for these two teams and the 4 seeds in these matchups. I guess the 1 seeds. They'll play again on Saturday, so you'll have Pistons, Cavs. That's going to be at 3:00 on NBC and 8:30 on ABC. You'll then have Thunder at Lakers. So we'll see if either of those teams can make it a series and cut into that deficit and make it a 2-1 series moving forward. So you got big games coming up tonight. So you got game 3s tonight. This stuff will be on Prime Video. I know there's a lot of questions about trying to find where these games are every night. These are on Prime. So you have Knicks, Sixers. Knicks traveling to Philly. That's going to be at 7 p.m. And then 9:30, you have Spurs traveling to Minnesota at 9:30 to play the T-Wolves. Interesting developments happening with the Knicks series. So Knicks won game 2 at home. Gritty win. This was not the blowouts we've seen the Knicks have the last 3-4 games. This one, they were down in the fourth quarter at various different points. This was a nip and tuck kind of game. I think the biggest lead for the entire game for either team, I believe, was 7. So this was like a very close game. And the Knicks defense really kind of won them the day in that game. But the big story coming out of the game was the fact that OG Anunoby, who has been one of the best players in the NBA playoffs this year. He's having the best. You want to talk about guys having a playoffs of their career, similar to Tobias Harris. That is also what you're seeing from OG Anunoby, who outplayed All-Star Jalen Johnson in the first series and was having an awesome game in this game. He had 24 in this one. He was dominant in game 1 as well. And despite how great he is playing, there's concerns about his health moving forward because he appeared to, we now know, strain his hamstring on a play late in the fourth quarter. He had asked out of the game. He went back to the locker room. We did not see him the rest of the way. We still have not heard from him. He's not someone that talks much anyway, but he never spoke to the media. He kind of left the locker room pretty much after the game was over. So there's question marks about what he was dealing with. Knicks come out and say he has a hamstring strain. They list him as day-to-day and questionable for game 3, which, given you hear hamstring, and what I appreciate about NBA fans and NBA media and NBA, just the NBA circle, is how we have been much more sophisticated to kind of understand the severity of injuries. Like, there was time it was like, hamstring, man, go out there and play. But I think we've seen now so many guys try to play through severe hamstring injuries and struggle and be liabilities that everyone now has a full understanding of like how severe these injuries are, and also like the risk of going out there compromised and potentially doing something worse to your leg, like we saw with, unfortunately, Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum, these other guys. So there's a lot more grace, I think, being given to guys that are injured, being like, yo, man, go out there and play. I think guys are like, you know what? We don't want to see you have a more severe injury, or we'd rather just try to find a way to get you close to 100% healthy to give us an opportunity to still win. So I think that there's a lot of Knicks fans, I think a lot of people who feel like it probably, regardless of how quote-unquote minor, which is the word that we were hearing from Stephen Bondi of New York Post, and Ian Bagley said that there was a lot of optimism that OG Anunoby was going to be okay, and that this is not a weeks-long injury, and that he could actually be fine up until Game 3. I think there's a lot of thought still that he probably shouldn't play. You're up 2-0. Yes, going up 3. I think this is a crucial game for the Knicks. Like, I think it's very crucial that they win this game. I don't think you want to get Philly any confidence and kind of get them an opportunity to kind of right their ship. I think you go 3-0, you know they're done. This is, I think, a game where they're going to play desperate. The Knicks got to match their desperation. So it's an important game. But also the reality is you're up 2-0. And you have to manage the series if you're up 2-0. And OG Anunoby is dealing with even a quote-unquote minor hamstring injury. I don't think that being up 2-0 is the kind of scenario where he should be playing through his hamstring injury. I think that if that's the situation, you got to feel good about the cushion that you've built, and you got to use that to your advantage, and you got to probably set up a game. With OG not out there, it certainly gives Philly an opportunity to win this game, potentially. Joel Embiid, I would assume, will be back. I don't want to really. I don't like to assume anything with him in his health, because the reality is he's a guy that has been through a lot of injuries, a lot of surgeries, and he just might not ever be a guy who's in the lineup regularly. He just might not ever be a guy who we can rely on to be healthy. And it's one of the reasons why I was picking the Knicks to win the series. It's one of the reasons why I was a tad surprised by so many people who were jumping on the Sixers bandwagon for this series, because any hope for the Sixers to win anything of significance requires confidence that Joel Embiid is going to remain healthy. And there's no reason for you to ever feel confident in that, ever. If he does, then all right, he does. And the Sixers, again, they have the talent to be very dangerous. But until they do it, I'm never going to bet on that. And that is why I thought, for those who were really excited about the Sixers winning the last series, even though Joel Embiid was hobbling through the end of that Game 7 against Boston, I thought to say that he was going to then be healthy enough to get through another series healthy was going to be a stretch. And turns out he couldn't get through one game. So we'll see if he's back. Knowing him, he probably will try to give it a go with whatever he was dealing with. I know they called it hip and ankle stuff. So we'll see if he can give it a go. But if you're the Knicks, whether he's out there or not, I don't think that should change your outlook. I think you sit OG Anunoby for this game, and you look ahead to trying to get Game 4 if you lose Game 3. I also think the Knicks are in a position where there's no reason why they still can't get great minutes from someone like Mohamed Diawara, who has not played a lot in these playoffs. He has been somebody that's been in and out of the rotation, but has played well in his time in the rotation. He's not OG Anunoby, obviously, who's looks like one of the best 30 players in the NBA right now. But he is someone who is long, athletic, defensively disruptive, and can provide maybe just some of the athletic profile stuff that OG brings to the table. You don't completely lose that if you throw Diawara into the rotation for at least a game. Have him fully prepared and ready to go for that. Again, I would. They're saying questionable behind closed doors. I'd be telling Mohamed Diawara, get ready to play 25 minutes tonight. Like, you're going to be out there. We're going to need you, and I'll be curious to see how this goes. So that's going to be a big one. Very fascinating to see what ends up happening with Spurs and T-Wolves. I always feel like when this is kind of going how most kind of like playoff series goes when it comes to like the team getting the first game 1 and then just chilling in game 2. The T-Wolves won that game 1. They were able to limit Fox and Wemby's offense tremendously. I think they combined for only 17 points. And the T-Wolves kind of gutted out a gritty win late. Spurs had a good look at the end, but weren't able to convert on a Champagny 3. And then game 2, they were disinterested. Spurs knew they couldn't go down 0-2, so they're playing extremely confident. They're trying to make up for what they felt like was a game they let slip away. T-Wolves were in just complete chill mode. So, that ended up being a lopsided blowout. When that happens, for me, it always feels like almost a playoff series has been put on pause. It's almost like I don't really know what to make of that last game because it was like phony. It was like fake. It wasn't like a real game. So I almost feel like I go back to game one, really, in terms of like where that series was and where they're going into this upcoming series. Wemby certainly got it going the last game, and the whole team, again, got it going. The question will be, was that something that they could actually translate into anything viable for the next game? Wemby had 19 points. He was 7-15. Jump shot still not quite there. He only shot 2 for 7 from the field. De'Aaron Fox was 5 for 10. He shot 2 for 3. He was plus 24. Fox had a much better impact on this game than he had in the first one. So will they be able to take that act onto the road? It's gonna be an interesting thing, man. This is a good series though. This is a really good series. We'll also have to see what happens with Anthony Edwards. He's still coming off the bench. He only played 24 minutes and again was almost a 40-point blowout. So I don't think you wanted him probably wasting too much time out there. But I do wonder at what point does the minutes restriction come off? At what point does he go back into the starting lineup? You would think, as gutsy as this T-Wolves team has been to fight through the injuries that they've had, where they haven't had Ayo Dosunmu, who finally came back the last game, but did not have nearly the impact he had from when he last played and scored 40 points in a playoff game. You wonder, like, will these injuries start to catch up to this team, or is there an opportunity that Anthony Edwards can continue to get healthy? He can get back in the starting lineup, and this is a team that remains dangerous. But this is a fun series. This is a game that I'm actually looking forward to really watching, because I feel like it kind of got paused after game one because of how uncompetitive game two was. So I want to see what happens when they get the opportunity to get these teams playing again. So great action happening in the NBA playoffs. Great action to check out tonight. Shifting gears, though, I want to get to a story that happened a couple of nights ago. It's tangential or adjacent to the NBA playoffs, but not quite an NBA playoff story. But involves Draymond Green and his appearance on ESPN's Inside the NBA set. So he was in there in place of Shaquille O'Neal, who was not there. So this was his, as part of his deal that he signed with Turner years ago. He's one of the guys that during the playoffs, he enters the fray for their commentary, and he's one of the guys who subs in for one of the guys if they're out. He will be, I think, part of all of the games during the conference finals, or at least some of the games in the conference finals. That will be the Western Conference Finals this year, I believe. But don't quote me on that though, because I'm not sure. TNT, the whole media gambit changed last year with all the different media partners. So usually they flip flopped. So I'm thinking, oh well, TNT had the Eastern Conference Finals last, so they had the Western Conference. Wait, this isn't TNT, this is ESPN. So there's a chance it might be the Eastern Conference Finals, but we'll cross that as we get there. Either way, you'll see Draymond Green again on ESPN soon. But he did this appearance, and fans are starting, I think, grow tired of this guy. And Draymond Green is someone who is abrasive. He is someone who does not have a filter. He is someone who I do think is authentic and says bombastic things that plays well, I think, for social media, which is what's very important right now to these networks and really important to almost any content creation that's happening, whether it's on TV or even individual content and independent content creation, because for now, we'll see the media landscape changes all the time. Social media clipping is probably the what they feel like is the best way to get eyeballs to your show and the best way to see that your show is generating buzz. Is that the right way to approach it? That reasonable minds can debate that. I saw the Bomani Jones had a pretty viral social media clip where he talked about how much he hated social media clipping, how much he hated social producers, because he feels like it's people who are taking things sometimes out of context for the sole purpose of generating rage bait. And Draymond Green, whether he's doing it intentionally or unintentionally, is catnip for social media producers, because this is somebody who will say bombastic things, do bombastic things, and it's fully invested in playing that game and giving them what they want. So he appears on Inside the NBA, and what I do typically like about when sometimes they have guys like Green, they've had Kobe Bryant in the past, they've had various different current players in the past sometimes join them, is it is interesting to see the back and forth not just about those guys talking about the games, but those guys also talking about their teams and guys being able to give opinions about kind of where their teams stand and the future for their current organizations. And Draymond Green, of course, is with the Warriors, who are definitely in a little bit of a holding pattern. We don't know what the future is with Steve Kerr. We keep hearing every couple of days or weeks, it looks like he's definitely going to be out. But then everybody acts as if this is still a decision that needs to be made. And the fact that we still don't know suggests that probably is the truth. That there's still a lot of discussions and a lot of, hemming and hawing that's happening for Kerr in terms of whether or not he wants to return under whatever the guidelines are that the Warriors have set for him to return. So Charles Barkley, in this conversation, in talking about the NBA and talking about the Warriors and regarding to what their chances are of getting back to championship contention, he mentions that the Warriors have an older roster. And at the end of the day, it's going to be very hard for them with an older roster to compete. Draymond Green is then asked, what is the goal for the Golden State Warriors given what Charles is saying about the fact that you guys are an older team? Listen to this back and forth between Charles, Kenny, and Draymond, and we'll talk about it on the backside.
Listen, sports are for young people. You hope to have a great long career, but sports, nobody wins when they're 37, 38.
But you said what you said. I didn't want to hear if he believes what you're talking.
Yeah, I think the goal is just to not look like you in the Houston Rockets uniform.
Yeah.
Is ultimately the goal for us. We don't want to.
What does that look like?
Did you see it?
I'm just asking.
I saw it. We're always going to try to compete. When you win championships, the goal will always be to try to reach that level.
So that comment about not wanting to look like Charles Barkley in a Houston Rockets uniform obviously led to people raising an eyebrow. One, because it came across as a mean comment that was unnecessary. And two, seemed to highlight the severe level of delusion and who Draymond Green thinks he is as a player. So just to give context, Charles Barkley, he played obviously the prime of his career in Philadelphia and in Phoenix. He then demanded a trade once the Suns showed that they could not compete for a championship anymore to join a contender. He joined the Houston Rockets, a team that already had Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon, but he was added as a third star in hopes of them trying to make one last run at a championship after they won back-to-back in 94 and 95. So he joins them in the 96-97 season. Charles Barkley's numbers with the Houston Rockets are better than any season Draymond Green has ever had in the NBA. His first season, he averaged 19 points and 13 rebounds and 4 assists. In the playoffs that year, they lost to the Jazz on a game-winning shot from John Stockton in Game 6 that would have, if he missed, forced a Game 7, and then who knows what happens in Game 7. But that's how close that they were to maybe getting back to the NBA Finals with Charles Barkley on the Houston Rockets. This is the goal. It's not like Charles Barkley in a Rockets uniform, right? Charles Barkley in the Rocket uniform, in his first playoffs, he outplayed Shawn Kemp, who was in the prime of his career, who just came off an NBA Finals appearance in the Western Conference semifinals the previous year, in which that went 7 games and helped lift the Rockets to the Western Conference Finals. He then took the Rockets to 2 more playoffs. They did not go past the first round, but he took them to the playoffs in a couple years with the Houston Rockets. They were not a great team. They were not a team that was competing for a championship or anything like that, and they had a lot of issues. Scottie Pippen joined the team, and he was hated by a lot of his teammates. It was not great. I'm not going to sit here and try to, recreate history and tell you that Charles Barkley with the Rockets was this incredible thing. But it was not the disaster that he suggested that it was. They had a small window, which they knew was only a year or two. The 1 year he was there, they came up. The first year he was there, which was their best shot, they came up a little bit short of getting to the NBA Finals against a very good Jazz team who went to the Finals 2 years in a row. This was the first of 2 years in a row the Jazz went there, so they lost to a damn good team. And he was great in that playoff. So, again, it led to people saying, well, what the hell is Draymond Green even talking about? Charles Barkley was not terrible with the Rockets. And even if he was, why are you saying this to him? What has become of commentary in the sports world where everything has to be some kind of gotcha? I am so sick of, particularly it's happening with pro athletes, but they're doing it to each other. This pro athlete thing where you take fair criticism. Somebody can have an opinion about your career, and when you play in this arena, if you have the skill, the talent, and the hard work that Draymond Green has put together to enter the arena, to be a sports athlete and a pro athlete, you're going to be susceptible to commentary about your game, commentary about your team. It's not always going to be things that you like. The hope is that nobody crosses the line. But if people make simple comments about your team is too old, or when you mention that you feel like Steve Kerr's hindered your career, someone says, listen, like at the end of the day, like Austin Rivers, Draymond Green wasn't a defender, and Steve Kerr helped his career a ton. He helped him become a Hall of Famer, so I don't know what he's really complaining about. A lot of people would love to have his career. These are not things to come out and say, well, you know what, let's peel back the onion and turn the mirror on you and talk about your career. Charles Barkley's career as a Houston Rocket is irrelevant to the conversation about whether or not the Warriors can win a championship or not. Austin Rivers' high school career, his NBA career, is not relevant to talking about the Golden State Warriors of today. But Draymond Green does this corny thing all the time when you actually try to talk about the Warriors, even if you're not trying to be disrespectful or you're not trying to be outlandish, and you say something that goes against maybe what he feels, the only move that he has is to get personal. The only move that he has is to go low. The only move that he has is to be a bully. And I'm asking the simple question that I've asked now for 4 years. When does Draymond Green's vision of quote-unquote new media begin? Because if you'll remember, Draymond Green, along with Pat Beverly, along with several other guys, decided in 2022 that they were going to push this movement of getting more professional athletes involved with the media. As if they weren't already. But I don't know. They wanted to make, because I'm like, they're pro athletes that were on media all the time. But a lot of it actually became more like guys creating their own shows, guys creating their own content, or media companies hiring them, which I was and still am all for, by the way, in terms of that aspect of it. But him and Pat Beverly kept highlighting this is going to be new media. All right, well, what the hell is new media? What does this even mean? And Draymond Green in 2022, in his own words, I want to see if I can bring it up, only because I actually clipped it. But Draymond Green, in his own words, spoke about wanting new media to be a new media that doesn't allow for guys to just be taking shots at people and being mean and actually analyzing the game. Like, this is what they talked about. It wasn't supposed to be what you saw a couple days ago with new media being, what were you in a Houston Rockets uniform? That's not what Draymond Green's, in his own words, his own vision for what this was supposed to be. That's not what this is supposed to look like. But when I listen to Draymond Green at any point doing any content, it seems to be him getting clips for saying outlandish and bombastic and sometimes just straight up incorrect, inaccurate, mean things about people. To which, again, I say, what difference do you have when you're doing that kind of thing? What is the discernible difference between you and any troll that's on social media or any content creator on social media that's doing that stuff all the time? You're just like them. I guess maybe, we like to see the car crash. We like to see the players, getting into it, right? Like, that's an aspect of sports. That's a reality. So maybe that's compelling to people. But if I just took what was being said on social media after this whole fiasco on Inside the NBA, it feels like people are starting to grow tired of this. And people are starting to wonder, is there actually any substance behind Draymond Green other than running to personal attacks whenever he hears something that he doesn't like? I believe I can have it here. I'm going to play it now. This was Draymond Green a couple years ago. He was on a kind of a special live audience episode of the Draymond Green Show and the Old Man and the Three, back when JJ Redick was a podcaster. And he was asked to explain what he means by new media. I want you to hear Draymond Green and what he said he wanted to bring to the table as a media analyst. And you tell me if he is doing any of these things.
When I said the new media, I'm saying analyzing these things, talking about the game and understanding, giving flowers when flowers is due, and not just trying to bash a guy every chance that I get. The new media, I think when you look at the game of basketball, what's been lost is I can turn on the TV and I can learn about the game of basketball. The new media is simple. It's very simple. It's actually analyzing the game of basketball. It's actually giving those flowers when flowers is due. It's being critical. It's not just saying, oh, man, Steph Curry was great, and when he wasn't great, I'm not going to speak on it. Be very critical, but tell us the whole truth. Don't just tell me he was bad, he was terrible, his legacy is going to be hurt, and this, that. But why was he terrible? Can you explain that to me? Help me better understand what you're saying. And I think that's been lost, and what's replaced it is titles and headlines and hot takes for clickbait.
I mean, has Draymond Green in any way not engaged in commentary that has been geared towards hot takes and headlines for clickbait? He said there, we need to find a way to have people have an opportunity to turn on TV and actually learn about basketball. Something that I 1,000% agree with, something I've said a ton. What did I learn about with Draymond Green making the comments about Charles Barkley and what he looked like a Houston Rockets uniform? I learned nothing, because he told me something that he said also being telling the whole truth. He told something that was a lie. First of all, he couldn't explain what that meant when they asked him, what does that mean? He just said, oh, I watched it. So then we have to infer, okay, I guess he's assuming that that is a negative thing. Or what did that actually look like? Well, if I don't know, if I was too young or I wasn't around watching basketball at that time, I have to then do research. And then people who do research and realize the quote-unquote whole truth that Draymond Green suggested that needed to be infused in new media was not being told, because the Charles Barkley and the Rockets had way more success than Draymond Green's Warriors right now. I just told you 3 years in a row the Rockets went to the playoffs with Charles Barkley on the Rockets. The Warriors did not make the playoffs this year. The Warriors are in a position right now where they look like they're headed towards something closer to tanking than they are to a championship. So you're not telling me the whole truth. I'm not able to learn anything. But what did you give me? You did give me a hot take clickbait moment where we get to see over and over again Draymond Green dishes Charles Barkley because he says that he doesn't want to look like Charles Barkley in Houston Rockets uniform. Again, Charles Barkley in his worst year with the Houston Rockets had better numbers than Draymond Green's ever had. His last year of his career, in which he tore up his hip and was out for most of the season, he averaged 14 points and 10 rebounds. Again, Draymond Green has never done that in his entire career. So, again, I go back to my original point that a lot of this, I think, stems from a great deal of delusion in terms of who Draymond Green thinks he is as a player, and it has been emboldened because of the amount of championships he's won. I'm not a fool. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he didn't have a big role in the Warriors winning those championships. But he walks around and talks like he is Steph Curry. He walks like he was a guy that was hitting game-winning shots, and that he was a guy averaging 35 and 30 points during playoff series, and that he was spearheading an effort for them to win a championship when that was not the truth. The truth was he was a role player who was phenomenal in his role, but he was a role player who did help lift other stars, but in order for those teams to be competitive and to win championships, it required Steph Curry to be an incredible shooter. It required Klay Thompson to be an incredible shooter. It required, and then Kevin Durant to be phenomenal offensive players. Whenever those guys were hurt or those guys were unavailable and Draymond Green was asked to do more, the team always lost. They blew a 3-1 lead when Steph Curry was playing on a bum knee, and they needed Draymond Green to do more. He had a great Game 7 in that series. I'm not going to take that away from him. I think he had 30 in that game. But they lost. When Steph Curry got hurt the next year after Kevin Durant left, and they needed Draymond Green to lift the team, and they had no Klay Thompson, they were the worst team in the NBA. This year, when the Warriors Jimmy Butler got hurt, and all those guys got hurt, and then Steph Curry missed a bunch of time, they needed Draymond Green to help lift the team. The team couldn't make the playoffs. The team has never been good when they have had to lean on Draymond Green to do anything more than the limited role he is given. It's an important role. He has to play defense at a high level. He has to move the ball at a high level. He has to be a high IQ offensive player. It's an important role, but anytime he's been asked to do a little bit more than that, the team tanks. When there have been plenty of times when Steph Curry's had to score 50 points in Game 7 to advance. Kevin Durant's had to outplay LeBron James. There's been plenty of times where they've asked other guys on that team during that dynasty, as great as they already are, to go even above and beyond what they give to the Warriors on a regular basis. And they haven't always delivered, but when they have delivered, they've won championships. When Draymond Green has been asked to do a little bit more than he typically gives, the Warriors are in the lottery. That's the reality of who Draymond Green is as a player, but because he has this battery pack in his back and thinking that he's Steph Curry, that he thinks he can just go and take random shots at just anybody that dares to even give mild commentary on the Golden State Warriors or his game. I mean, the Austin Rivers thing, which I didn't get to too much, but, again, Austin Rivers is on Dan Patrick's show. Dan Patrick mentions this comment that Draymond Green about how he doesn't think that Steve Kerr ever liked him, and, he wonders if Steve Kerr hindered his career because he didn't get to, have more offensive plays ran for him and stuff. And I to be honest, I have no problem with Draymond feeling that way. People can disagree with him, but that's his opinion. That's his feeling. He's been coached under Steve Kerr. But I think Austin Rivers had a reasonable opinion on it when he's asked about it, which is you've become a Hall of Famer because of Steve Kerr's coaching, and the reality is you're not a great offensive player. So it'd be like Peyton Manning saying, why did I get to run more option offense? It's well, that's not your strength. Your strength is being a pocket passer. So what Rivers said wasn't unfair. And then what happens? What is Draymond Green? Again, was there telling the whole truth? Was there being very analytical? Or was he going to go to hot takes and clickbait? He went to hot takes and clickbait. He's like, look at your high school career. I was just as good as you in high school, which is a lie. You were not as good as Austin Rivers in high school. Again, talk about very truthful. Stop it. You had to play football in your first year at Michigan State because we didn't know if you were really going to be a basketball player. That's the reality of who you were coming out of high school. So you were playing tight end for the Michigan State Spartans in your first year while also playing basketball. So stop it with you were as good as Austin Rivers as a high school player as a freshman. No, you weren't. Then he's like, oh, well, look, Austin Rivers, you were a disappointment in the NBA. Again, what does this have to do with what Austin Rivers said about your team? What does this have to do with what Austin Rivers said about you as a basketball player? Nothing. He is getting paid to be an analyst. Draymond Green is that guy who peaked in high school, who is 35 years old, still wearing his high school varsity jacket around because that's the best thing that's ever happened in his life. And he's going to remind people about that all the time, even when us as a society and world have moved on. He is somebody that is still wearing that I'm a 4-time champion still, and I'm an all-star still. And again, the delusions of grandeur to think that he thinks he's Steph Curry, and he's wearing that around when everybody has moved on. We're talking about your career currently. Austin Rivers, we moved past Austin Rivers and whether his dad gave him a contract and whether we don't care. He's been hired as a basketball analyst, and he's being asked about you being one of the prominent players in the NBA and about your career and comments you made. Charles Barkley, we don't care about what happened with the Houston Rockets in 1997. Nobody cares about that. We care about what Charles Barkley is commenting about your game because he gets paid to be an analyst to give his opinion on basketball. That's what we care about. And this whole corny act of, well, let me turn the mirror on you and talk about your past and your history, that only works for when you're talking about guys that are currently in the league. You want to have a back and forth with a Karl-Anthony Towns or a Dylan Brooks, you want to talk about their careers now, wherever, and get your hot takes and clickbait that you claim that you wanted to go against. That's another thing, and that's fine. That's guys in the league that are competing and battling, and they talk and chirp in the media, and that's fine. Those are guys that are on even footing. To be a current player and decide that anybody that takes a shot at you, I'm just going to talk about your career or talk about what you did in your past. In light of that, it's just whack. And again, it's actually not just Draymond Green. It's one of the reasons why I got so pissed off about what we heard from Drew Hanlon a months ago when the Jason Tatum thing, which, by the way, Carmelo Anthony looks pretty damn smart today. He said Jason Tatum needed to take a back seat, and now Jason Tatum couldn't finish the series, and Draymond Green and Jaylen Brown's crashing out on the internet saying that, you know, his favorite time of the year, his favorite time playing basketball was a season where Jason Tatum wasn't there. And then, but Drew Hanlon comes in and he's like, oh, well, who is Carmelo Anthony to talk about basketball? What? What are we talking about? And trying to point to Carmelo Anthony not being a winner? Again, that is all been adjudicated. We don't care about the fact that Carmelo Anthony didn't win an NBA championship or that he didn't get to the NBA finals. That doesn't matter at this point. He is being asked to comment on contemporary players, and then that's it. If you have an issue with his commentary, talk about his commentary. If you have an issue with what Charles Barkley said about the fact that you guys are an old team, try to argue with him. Argue the points. Argue the facts. Point out how other LeBron James is playing till age 40 and he's found a way to escape Father Time. Why can't Steph Curry, who's as great as he is, why can't I, and I'm a Hall of Famer, why can't we try to strive to do what LeBron has done? He's playing the playoffs currently. Like, there are things you can say if you want to actually have a conversation that you could say to combat these narratives, but he doesn't want to do that because, again, he goes back to this corny act because I actually don't think he has anything to say. And that's the overall problem with this is Draymond Green has become the most overrated media personality that we have in our whole complex. Like, these companies and these media outlets think that he's some, like, rising star when he doesn't have anything interesting to say. The whole thing about, you know, I always say, listen, like, I step to this mic, I'm always keeping it 100, but I always say this show particularly is the most authentic version of EJ you get. And not that the other ones are inauthentic, but there is no overhead, no filter, nobody saying, hey, don't say this, whatever. Not that there is anywhere else, but you know what I mean. There's no real ramifications. Like, the reality is these media companies think so because Draymond Green is clippable, because Draymond Green says bombastic things that therefore he brings value. I don't think he brings viewers. Like, I don't think that because Draymond Green was in there for Shaq, it made me want to turn. I was like, oh man, Shaq's not there. I don't want to watch Inside the NBA now. Like, I don't want to watch Draymond Green. Like, this, everything about the fun of that show, all the stuff you know is going away because this guy takes himself too seriously. He can't laugh at himself. He can't have fun. He can't take criticism. He can't, like, you know, you can't do that with him. I want to play this other side from him. Because, again, we talk about being analytical and we talk about not doing things for clickbait, which is what he said. You know, he's doing pregame for a Knicks game. Knicks are playing the Sixers. And here is his very analytical commentary about the New York Knicks. That is fact-based. That is deep diving into the tape about an important aspect of this series. Here is what Draymond Green's big takeaway was from this Knicks-Sixers series as they enter the game 2.
I'm going to tell you a problem the Knicks are going to have, and Kenny's going to hate this, but they win these games. You know, it's the second round of playoffs, and everybody's running around. They're having parades. They're trapping J.R. Smith outside of Madison Square Garden. Let's not have a parade before you win the thing, Knicks fans. But y'all do the same thing, and then y'all wonder why y'all players quit in the conference finals. They got the parade already.
What? And what are we doing? First of all, I want to make this clear. This is like again, this speaks to a guy who just reads stuff on social media and just says whatever. This is a narrative that keeps being said about the Knicks. There's never been a parade for a Knicks playoff win. Ever. It's never happened. Not since 1973. I know what you idiots on social media who see people outside of Madison Square Garden doing side talk videos and the watch parties that happen outside the Garden, which, by the way, happens in Toronto, has happened in Milwaukee, has happened in plenty of other cities that have had watch parties outside of the stadium and people celebrating wins outside the arenas. That's not a new thing. I know you idiots see that and think that that's a parade in New York City. For you idiots who, as someone who lives in New York City, I've seen what a championship parade looks like. Sadly, it's not been for any of my teams, but I lived through a Yankees dynasty. I've seen the Liberty just recently win a championship and have a parade. So the New York Giants win 2 Super Bowls. I know what a parade looked like. It's not a parade. There's never been a parade for the Knicks winning a playoff game, playoff series, advancing to the next round. That's never happened. Hundreds of fans have gathered outside the arena and cheered and jumped up and down and done social media videos. And there have been watch parties outside the arena, again, packing a couple hundred fans. That's it. There's never been a parade. So stop with the Knicks, or you guys ran through a parade when you... No, they didn't. There's never been a parade. People have celebrated outside of the arena when they won. And there's been a lot of people. That is not abnormal. It's probably abnormal to you guys because you're not used to seeing a fan base that have this kind of motion. That's a reality. But stop this. There's throwing parades around nonsense. That's not true. The only thing that I thought was way out of line and I didn't agree with and most Knicks fans actually hated was the mayor put up, the idiot mayor they had before, Eric Adams. He put up street signs with the teams, certain players' names were like named after them during the Eastern Conference Finals last year. So he had like Jalen Brunson Way, like as like a ceremonial thing for a short time period. That was silly and stupid, and the Knicks had nothing to do with that. And something that, you know, they can't control if the mayor is being an idiot, right? But that's probably the closest thing to like celebrating, like you won a championship was that thing. That was not Knicks related. So stop with the nonsense. They're not throwing parades after they win. They're celebrating outside the Garden. Yes, there's a couple of hundred people. Maybe there's 1,000. I don't know. It's not thousands. A couple hundred people. If you want to see a parade in New York City, there's tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people lined up all throughout 7th Avenue and Broadway, up from Midtown all the way to the Canyon of Heroes near City Hall. That's what a parade looks like in New York City. So stop this idiocy saying that they're throwing parades for the Knicks when they win championships. They're not. Or winning playoff games. They're not. Stop it. The other aspect of that, again, being factual. So once again, we could have real commentary about what happened last season, or we could be bombastic and go clickbait. The Knicks quit last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. When did they quit? They lost a heartbreaking game 1, where Tyrese Burton hit that shot, and they lost in overtime. They lost in game 2. Did they quit when they were down 20 points in game 3 and fought all the way back to make it a 2-1 series and save their season? Did they quit when they were down 3-1 going back to New York and they could have packed it in and instead grinded out a tough, gritty win at home to force the series back to Indiana? Okay, they lost game 6 on the road to a team that was playing at home and was red hot. That then was maybe a torn Achilles away from having one of the most, shocking NBA championship wins in NBA history. They lost on the road to a good team. That quit? They didn't get blown out by 30 points, 40 points. That was a competitive game. They lost a competitive game. They lost, I don't know, it was like a 10-point loss, whatever. They didn't get... Where is this quit? What are you talking about? The Knicks didn't quit. They lost. They got beat. They got beat. They weren't as... They were wore down. They don't... I mean, you want to talk about a team that quits. They're a team that plays 7-8 guys. They weren't playing... They don't play a deep rotation. Like, they got beat. They lost. And instead of, again, giving actual commentary on... Remember, tell them why they lost. Tell them what they did wrong. Instead of doing any of that, it's just like something fans parading and your team quit. Because he has this thing where he knows that he can get headlines and get clipped and get stories done because he says something about the Knicks and Knicks fans. Because Knicks fans can't stand this guy. Because anytime he opens his mouth about the Knicks, he doesn't sound very bright. That's the reality, is that he sounds like somebody who doesn't pay attention. And I wouldn't expect him to. He has his own team. He should be focused on whatever the Warriors are doing. But he likes to talk about this team all the time because he knows that Knicks fans engage with him, and it does give him engagement. But I go back to my original point. Where was the guy that talked about a need for new media to be very analytical and tell the truth and tell the whole truth and not go for clickbait? He's just become everything he said that was ruining sports media. And I get to a point where I'm like, I don't think that, I just hope that we get to a certain point where we're not just simply giving people platforms and headline and microphones because people hate them. Because I don't know if that's how far that goes anymore. There may have been a time when we had less content out here. You know, like there was a reality that, like, I hate to name names. Whatever, I'll just do it. Like there's a time, like even like during the hottest run of ESPN's First Take, where if you were gonna watch a sports morning show, or just sports content that was live or recent. Like you had reruns of SportsCenter. Maybe NFL Network is doing recaps of the game, but they weren't doing any Good Morning Football or anything like that. And maybe NBA TV is showing you NBA Game Time from last night, but that's only a half-hour show. If you want to have recent commentary, you gotta watch First Take, which means you gotta watch Skip Bayless. And for some people, I'm not casting aspersions on what I feel about Skip Bayless. I'm just talking about the reality. Some people watched because they hated Skip, and they wanted to see what he was gonna say the next day. That was gonna infuriate them, and how they could, argue with themselves, or argue with their barber, or argue with their friends about the recent thing he just said. And there was a time where there was value in that because there just simply wasn't enough content being made about what was happening currently in sports to go to something else. The reality now is people have too many options. And if you don't want to watch, and I'm not, this is not a call for me to say don't watch Inside the NBA. I would never do that. I don't want to take money out of anybody's pocket. But I'm just saying, as a consumer, if you don't want to watch Inside the NBA at a time when, with Draymond Green on there, you don't have to if you want to have NBA content. If I'm on Buzzer right now, I'm sure, shout out to the guys, Nick Film School, I'm sure they were doing a pregame that was live right here on Buzzer. You can go to, I'm sure, shout out to my mentor, my good friend, Spike Eskin. I'm sure they had content going for the Rights to Ricky podcast. If I don't want to hear Draymond Green yelling about Knicks fans, I'm like, well, talk about my team. I want to hear about the Sixers. You'll certainly find awesome Sixers content. And the Knicks MSG is doing their own pregame show, right? Or some people decide, all right, I'm not going to watch. I'm just going to turn on an episode of The Wire before this game because I don't want to listen to Draymond Green. The reality is there's too much competition, I think, for some of these media companies to keep thinking that simply putting on people because people hate them is the means to money and the means to success. There was a time where that may have been the case. There was a time where that there might have been value because the options were limited. I don't think people want to continue to keep just being annoyed and keep being gaslit. Like, there's a reason why we've had those issues with how political commentary is. It's the same thing. People, whatever they feel, they want to hear the news presented in a way that comes from their perspective. So, and now there are options for you to do that on cable and through digital media. I think it's the same with sports. These companies that think that, Draymond Green, he's going to get people riled up, he's going to get people fired up and angry, and that's going to lead to people more people wanting to watch. I mean, they may get a lot of content and stuff because of Warrior fans and stuff, but what does this do? What does this do for TNT or Turner Sports / ESPN to have? Again, I guess the social media clips are doing well, I assume, so that I guess does something for them. But I think if that's all you have is that we can get good social media clips, and I don't think it actually drives ratings or drives people to actually watch. I still think that it's a flawed media strategy, in my opinion. Just my thoughts, though, man. I'm sorry, though. I'm just as a sports community, not even media community, as a sports community, have we not had enough of Draymond Green? Like, have we not had enough? He's got his own show. He's got his own content. And he should continue to do that if he wants to. I have no more power to him. I have nothing against him wanting to do what he wants to do. But I'm speaking as just towards us, the fans, which then drive the decisions that get made at a place like Turner Sports. Have we not had enough of this? I think people have had enough of this. And there's this thought process that Draymond Green is going to be like the next Charles Barkley. If there's any chance that happening, which I find very hard to believe, if there's any chance that happening, he's got to take off the edge, man. Like, Charles Barkley was not actually too dissimilar from Draymond Green, the player, in terms of, like, the guy you see on TV is not the guy that was the player. The guy on TV, the guy as a player was a lot more cantankerous, a lot more combative. He was funny. And Draymond Green is funny. Draymond Green also is very funny. Like, he has a great personality, ironically. But he didn't show nearly as much of that humor and that side while he was a player, which is probably appropriate. He was a very serious guy trying to win a championship. But he was a guy that got into it with media members, that was very aggressive, that was combative. That was why the "I'm not a role model," promotional campaign worked, because he was somebody that people looked at and said, like, Charles Barkley is cursing at reporters, he's threatening reporters, he's doing X, Y, and Z. This is the guy we want to have as an example for our kids. That's why it worked, because he was a certain villain is a harsh word, but like he was a controversial player when he was playing because of his attitude. He knew that he had to take off that edge immediately once he got on television, and he had to play more into the comedy, more into the humor, more into the fun. He's very self-deprecating. And it was an aspect that we saw even when he was a player, but he leaned into that more as a media personality, because at the end of the day, I don't think that we actually want mean-spirited people on television. I don't think we actually want mean-spirited people giving commentary. I don't think that's what people want. I think there's a time when people feel that way, but I think it's like candy. It's like cotton candy, that commentary. Is that it's good in small bits, but even while you're eating it, when you're halfway through, you're like, all right, I'm kind of done with this. I don't need to hear this 100% of the time. He was smart enough to realize that you couldn't be that 100% of the time. He had to lean more into the fun. Do you get some of that Charles Barkley edge every now and then? Of course you do. And it makes him arguably the best to ever do this. But he was smart enough to realize that it was going to take a lot more dynamic commentary than simply just being, the mean cuss. Draymond Green, if he's going to do what he wants to do, and I think be a service to fans, because that's what we are as a media. Like, we're service to fans. We're trying to entertain. If he wants to do that, you got to lighten up, bro. All of this is not that serious. A comment about your team is old does not require you to then make a comment about someone else's career. That was just inaccurate. You couldn't even land the point because the point was wrong. It just sounded like you were being a jerk. Someone saying that, your career was impacted in a positive way by your head coach is not a license for you to just be a jerk and try to talk about someone else's career when they're simply commentating on your game. Like, again, when have we had enough of this? I don't know. And this is and I'll say this last thing on him is I feel like a lot of this stems from self-consciousness. I think he's self-conscious because for a lot of his career, he has been asked to be the hammer as opposed to the nail, or the hammer as opposed to the fine screwdriver. He has been someone who's been asked to put his body on the line, be physical, be aggressive, be in your face. That is who he has been in his career, and he's had a great career. But that's who he's always been asked to be. And perhaps in that 2022 clip when he was actually talking about what he wanted new media to be, which would have required him to not be the hammer, maybe that wasn't truly what he wanted. But I think, and I wonder if this is somebody who then got into the space and became self-conscious about actually leading with his brain and leading with his intellect and leading with what he knows about this game. Because I've said this a ton. When I've seen Draymond Green actually do film breakdowns and I've seen Draymond Green actually break down basketball, he's a brilliant mind, which you have to be to be the caliber player he was and to win the championship. You have to be. He's a brilliant basketball mind when it comes to that. And it just feels like, I don't know if he's got into it and people have told him he can't do that, but we've seen none of that aspect of him. Again, the only thing we see from him is just him coming around, getting on the mic, and just talking crazy about people. That's what he does. But I think there's some self-consciousness to that. I think that there's some, if I'm doing psychoanalysis on him, I think that there's something in his mind that doesn't think that he can be entertaining or that he can make headlines or he can have a career in this if he is not the hammer. If he's not the guy that's willing to say the thing that other people won't say. If he's not the guy that's willing to be mean or willing to be a bully. I think that he doesn't think that because there's never been a part in his career, despite the fact that, like I said, in order to be how good he is, he did have to be smart. He did have to use his brain. But I think because so much of his career has been be physical, be tough, be angry, be mean, be a bully, I think he's now taken that into his media career where he thinks that that's all that he can be now. Because that's all he's been since he got to the NBA, basically. And it's a shame. I wish he was someone that had wasn't so self-conscious about how he looks in this media space that he so badly wanted to be a part of, and instead tried to do what he said he was set out to do when he wanted to enter. I'm not going to say shout out Draymond Green because he's just pissing me off at this point. But I do hope that if that is true, and I hope he finds a way to maybe look in the mirror, because this is getting ridiculous. Like, again, at a certain point, it's like, what? We didn't ask for this. It feels like Draymond Green is being forced against our will now when it comes to him and media commentary. It'd be different if this guy was Kevin Durant. He's not. Like, we don't have Dennis Rodman was pretty much he's kind of like the modern day Dennis Rodman in terms of his actual like role on his teams, and I think they're comparable players in many ways. I mean, Dennis Rodman is not sitting around, questioning the careers of an Elgin Baylor, right? He's not questioning the careers of, name a guy in the 70s or 80s who was a much better player than him that didn't win a championship. Like, he's not doing that. Dennis Rodman's doing a lot of other different things. But, like, if he did, we'd be like, what are we doing here? Like, we know he's a great player, but come on, stop it. It's kind of like what Knicks fans have had to deal with Charles Oakley, where it's like, we love you, Charles Oakley. You were so important to those Knicks teams, but, like, now you're dissing Patrick Ewing. What are we doing? We have to have some level of, like, respect in terms of understanding the pecking order of NBA players. Like, the worst thing that happened to us as a basketball society, just in terms of having to hear this guy, is the fact that he won 4 championships. Because if he only won 1, or if he never won 1 at all, we'd never hear about him. Like, if he was not linked up with Steph Curry, we would never hear about Draymond Green. Because the odds that he would have been able to go on some other team during that generation, I guess the only other person he could have been with probably and won those championships is probably LeBron James. So if he doesn't play with LeBron somehow, there's no other scenario in which Draymond Green has a media career. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer if he doesn't have the Warrior complex and Stephen Curry. I know if Stephen Curry goes to any other team, he's a Hall of Famer. LeBron James goes to any other team, he's a Hall of Famer. Like, that's the reality. There is no reality where Draymond Green goes to the Charlotte Hornets as a Hall of Famer or an All-Star. He's not any of those things. He's probably a very important player. He's one of those guys that basketball people who know basketball know, hey, this guy's a very important player. But his circumstances are why he is famous. And he keeps, like, again, he's walking around trying to show people that, like, again, he's wearing his varsity jacket to remind people of what he's accomplished, when what he's accomplished has been solely in the context of the team complex. There's no reality in which his individual performance would have been enough to lift any other team to championships. It's just a fact. It's a reality. All right, I'm done with Draymond Green. Last thing before we get out of here, man. This was something that was bizarre and weird, and I don't know what to make of it. But WWE has a big PLE this week. Or at least they're saying it's big. It's going to be Backlash, which is always the PLE post WrestleMania. Usually it ends up including a lot of WrestleMania rematches and those different things. Usually it's kind of like a nothing pay-per-view. Like, it's, the WrestleMania storyline that was established after WrestleMania. Like, it's going to, for a lot of these storylines, move forward in long-term story booking. So you can't expect all these, if they made any rash creative decisions to WrestleMania, for that to be reversed by Backlash. It doesn't happen like that. But sometimes it ends up being a sleeper good pay-per-view to watch because the matches end up being really good. Sometimes WrestleMania, as we saw this year, like, matches are shorter. Some people don't get as much time. It's a lot of politics to go into it. So a lot of times, sometimes they'll run back matches at WrestleMania that maybe didn't get as much time as they wanted. Or just guys and gals having more chemistry after doing a WrestleMania match that they go out there on Backlash and they put on a show. There's some awesome Backlash main events and Backlash matches where it's like, okay, the WrestleMania match was in, but man, that Backlash match was fire. So it's still a good pay-per-view to watch. But again, in terms of like storyline stuff, sometimes it's probably one of the ones you can skip if you've said, all right, I'm not here to watch WWE every month. But Backlash is happening. And what was surprising about this was they've been hyping up this appearance by John Cena, which is like, this guy was retired, and yet he's back seems like he's back every couple of months. And he was just at WrestleMania, hosting WrestleMania. Now he's back again doing a appearance for Backlash, which is the very next pay-per-view. So we know what's going on here. I want you to hear from John Cena. He released this video, I think this was yesterday, and they've been hyping up what is going to be this huge announcement coming for WWE's Backlash.
WWE Universe, hey, John Cena here, standing in Thunder Alley outside of Benchmark International Arena in Tampa Bay. In just a few days, I have a major announcement inside this building that is going to shock the very foundation of WWE. From its fans to its superstars, from its champions down to its rookies. I'm so grateful Tampa is allowing me a place to make this announcement. Thank you, WWE. See it live on ESPN in the States and Netflix around the world, but don't miss Backlash. I'm so excited, and I'll see you there.
So that's been the wording about this, right? It's going to be an announcement that's going to shake the fabric of WWE. That's a pretty big thing to say. And he keeps saying that's going to shake the fabric of every person on the WWE roster. Now they're including more fans in that commentary, which then kind of raises my eyebrows. Like, what exactly is this going to mean for like the actual roster? But like, it keeps suggesting that it's going to be this huge announcement. Now, what Fightful apparently has reported is that the announcement is going to be tied to the upcoming launch of Club WWE. So if there's any thought that was going to be something on the television side, that's not quite what is happening. So you may be asking, what is Club WWE? You may not even know what that is. But essentially, it's going to be a new premium paid membership experience that's going to allow fans exclusive benefits year-round. They'll get 24-hour ticket pre-sales, merch, and all those different things, access to WWE superstars. That is apparently what's been this big thing. They announced this, though, on April... they announced it last month. So this was already announced already. So just to give you a quick thing, Club WWE members will unlock a range of premium benefits, including exclusive 24-hour ticket pre-sale, access to all WWE events around the world, tailored perks at future events, including star meet and greets, hospitality opportunities, etc. Members only WWE shop featuring exclusive collections and early access to merchandise, like John Cena's upcoming Never Seen 17 collection, bonus WWE content, including inside scoops and extended cuts, behind the scenes footage, dedicated members only community forum connecting fans around the world. So this was already announced. I don't know if this means that this is the launch of that. I mean, it technically is already here. Like, you can reserve your spot and be part of WWE. You can put in to be a part of this now. So I don't know if like they're gonna just re-announce this or kind of package it differently. This doesn't feel like something that changes the fabric of WWE or changes the foundation of WWE anyway. So I'm hoping Fightful is wrong, or they've been fed bad information and that this is not what it is. Because I don't know, unless they're going to say something about this that is different than anything we've seen. I don't know if this is kind of announcement that's going to move people. I think you get to a point where you keep doing this kind of thing where like a new era is going to be ushered into WWE with this next event or this next announcement. And then what the payoff has been for those declarations, I don't know if it's been enough for some fans to feel like it was warranted, the hype. So you gotta be careful when you keep doing the latest and greatest ever, or best thing to come, or big changes happening thing every single time you have an announcement to make. And it's not that like Club WWE isn't important to the company. This is a big deal to the company. They want to make a lot of money off of this. Totally understand that. But you know, when you shift towards the creative and you shift towards, again, it's going to impact superstars and rookies and all those different things. Part of me tells me that it can't be something Club WB, even though that's what Fightful is saying. I don't want to diss Fightful and say that they're wrong or anything. They could just be fed something. But unless it's going to be something about Club WB that is different than what's been said, I don't know what that could be. But it just doesn't feel quite right. So I don't know. I'm interested. I mean, it's definitely... I was probably going to watch Backlash anyway, but this certainly makes me now want to pay attention to Backlash more to see what is John Cena going to say. I hope it's in something big. You know, people wondering, is it going to, we're going to get rid of the brand split, or we're going to get X, Y, and Z. You know, like, I hope it's something like that, but I don't know if that's what we're getting, to be honest. So we'll see, man. But that was a continuous conversation on the internet about what the hell is John Cena going to say when Backlash happens tomorrow, and we will learn in a little bit. that's going to do it, man. I want to thank you guys so much for checking me out here on 40 Days and Counting. Again, streaming live, multiple spots. Streaming live on YouTube, New Generation Media. For those on YouTube, if you want to watch on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media and New Generation Media. By the way, I didn't even mention this, but I should have. And that's a bad faux pas on my part. We got a new logo. New logo for New Generation Media, man. This is something that we've been working on for a little while. So it's really awesome that we were able to finally, bring it to life and put it together. But, we're approaching 10 years of doing this thing, man. I think we're at 10 years now since we started doing the first podcast we ever did. 10 years of content, 10 years of at this grind. I know some of you folks, because of you've heard me now on Fan, you've heard me now on Infinity Sports Network or CBS Sports Radio. Some of you may see me now on Buzzer. Some of you guys people are like, oh, like this guy came out of nowhere. It's like, no, we've been at this thing now for 10 years. But to celebrate that, we felt like an updated look was needed, and we've actually heard the call being like, you guys have a cool name and everything. What's with the logo? I've heard that a couple of times. Listen, this was like just starting out, not knowing how to create logos, and there was no AI at that time, so very limited resources. So our logo has been our logo, and we loved it. It's a part of our history, so we'll never diss our old logo, but we certainly wanted an upgrade. And for those that are wondering, this is what the new logo looks like. Obviously, not that it's very big right now, so you probably let me see if I get small on that a little bit. There you go. So this is the new logo for New Generation Media. So new color scheme is now purple. So if you're a Prince fan or a Laker fan, I guess, good for you. Ken will probably hate that because he's a Celtic fan. The first thing when we were making the logo and this vision came up, he said, "Why purple?" I knew probably he wanted to make a comment about the Lakers, though he is a Viking fan too, so he could switch it that way. But this is the new logo for New Generation Media moving forward. We also have new logos that we were availing for all the shows we have as well. Imperial Broadcast's logo's already been done and signed off on, so we'll have that probably posted next time. Shamari and Kendall do our Star Wars podcast, Imperial Broadcast, which is an awesome show you guys should check out. They did a new episode last week, and you just heard from Shamari that they will be at Star Wars Celebration next year. I think it's next year in LA. So those guys are doing phenomenal work with their stuff over at Imperial Broadcast, which is within the New Generation Media, New Generation Podcast Network complex. Again, make sure if you want to catch that content to search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. So we're excited, man. We feel like this has been a really fun avenue, fun journey that we've been on. Shout out to, I got Lucky G in the chat saying great. Lucky G also in the chat saying great show, EJ. I finally caught the live show. Been listening to the podcast. Shout out to you, Lucky. Apologies, I know I couldn't post yesterday or Wednesdays. We did a special Wednesday episode of 40 Days and Counting. Couldn't post it because of technical issues. It's a small technical thing. It was an issue on my part. But basically, I can post it now, but I had to wait a whole day. So that's why there was no podcast up for the last one. But there will be a podcast episode for this one for sure. But shout out to you, Lucky. Thanks for watching, man. I'm glad. Got a little bit of late start today. That's probably why I'm still on and probably why you were able to catch me. But, man, we're really excited about, where we're at in terms of what we're doing in New Generation Media. What we've been able to do with 40 Days and Counting has been awesome. Again, the podcast with Imperial has been awesome. We'll be doing a new episode of Hero Talk most likely this weekend. Talk about Daredevil Born Again. I mentioned on Wednesday I was at the official Season 2 finale watch party that was run by Marvel and Brandon Davis of the Brandon Davis live show and Phase Hero. Phenomenal event, fun event. If you want to check my thoughts on that, just head over to the YouTube channel. You can watch the last episode, watch the end of 40 Days and Counting. I talk a little bit about that. So we'll have Hero Talk coming up. We gotta do a new episode too of our wrestling podcast off script as well. So again, this has been an awesome year. This has been one of our better years in a while for New Generation Media, and then we got more and more fun content coming to you throughout 2026. But we're approaching the halfway point, and the amount of output we've had this year has been awesome. So only good things coming from New Generation Media. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, New Generation Media. Make sure you also subscribe to the podcast channel, New Generation Podcast Network. You'll find that wherever you get your podcasts. So streaming live on YouTube. Shout out to the folks in the YouTube chat. Thank you, Lucky, for joining on. Also, make sure you catch me on X, EJ_Stewart, where we're also streaming live as well. Make sure you follow me there, man. Greatly appreciate the folks on there. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, ActionEJ. And of course, let me see. Actually, I think I got Instagram up. Let's see if we can give any shout outs. Let's see who's been out here. Rhythm Child 69. Shout out to you. 69, nice. Mass 1505. He always supports. Shout out to you. Shout out to my guy. Black Ren. He says facts. I don't know what I was talking about. Probably talking about Draymond Green. I don't know. I was going off him for a little while. But so happy to see Seti in the chat, man. Love chat. He's an awesome dude. Petros. I'm so mad that this comment doesn't come up. Sometimes this is weird with Ecamm. I love Ecamm. I'm not dissing Ecamm at all. This is a really good platform. But sometimes comments don't come through, so apologies. YouTube comments seem to always come through, but other ones can be shaky. But Petros has a comment. I'll just read it so I can get a comment to him if he's still watching. Shout out to Petros, by the way. Friend from high school. Awesome tennis coach. Had some fun tennis pictures I see. He said Draymond was the heart and soul of that team, but you were right. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, talking about his history. Like, I'm trying to be as respectful as possible and tell the truth. Again, I'm not going to sit here and do what I feel like Draymond's doing, which is telling half-truths and lies and to just make headlines. Like, Draymond Green, without question, helped lift Steph Curry's and Klay Thompson's to become multiple-time champions. But he acts as if those guys didn't lift him, which is and that their roles in lifting him weren't way more important than his role. That's my problem. It'd be one thing, again, if he was Kevin Durant, where he could say, listen, I was averaging 25, 30 points. I'm outscoring LeBron in the finals. It doesn't mean you have the license to be a jerk, but I could almost understand a little bit of him wanting to clap back at people and be questioned and question the criticism he takes. For someone who, again, if it wasn't for being on the Warriors, would not be a media personality. Nobody would care about him. He would not have all-star games. Maybe he'd have defensive all-NBA teams. Maybe he'd even win Defensive Player of the Year. That's possible, maybe. But we now know, because we have history now. We have the context. We now know the greatness of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and now Kevin Durant. We know their greatness. Their stories are being written, but we're at the final chapters of those guys' careers, along with his career. So we now know who they are. We also know the other guys in the NBA in terms of what they were about and what they were when crunch time happened. And there are very few teams that with Draymond Green brought to the table that he'd even win a championship, let alone 4. Again, if you tell me he's with LeBron, okay, maybe he gets the 4. If you tell me he's with the Lob City Clippers, maybe they get 1 or a couple because maybe that's the edge they needed, right? If he gets with the Rockets with Mike D'Antoni and James Harden, I don't know. Those teams kept choking. Maybe they don't. Maybe he's not enough to get it done, right? The reality is, as great as he is in his role, he was perfect for that team. And it'd be one thing again if he had some level of acknowledgement of that, but he never seems to have that context. He wears around his varsity jacket, and wants to keep talking about how he was the captain of the football team 20 years ago. It's yo, bro, we're past that. We're past that. And no, you can't just say, hey, I used to bully that guy in high school, so therefore his opinion doesn't matter. No, Austin Rivers gets paid to talk about basketball, and he has every right to talk about basketball like you. Charles Barkley gets paid to talk about basketball. He damn sure has a right to talk about basketball, because just like you, they're being paid for their opinions. And I think we're just all sick of just constant negativity that he brings to commentary about the sport. That's all he brings. It's weird. It'd be one thing if he never promised to do something different, but he promised to do the opposite. I'm only holding him to his words. I know he has said that when you say something, you should stand on it. All right, I'm putting back that on you, Draymond. Stand on what you said in 2022 about what new media was supposed to be. Or come out and say, you know what, I realized I was wrong and I wanted to just be a clickbait merchant. You could do that too. At least you'd be telling the truth. At least you'd be honest. At least now we know what the game is. But to be I'm new media, I'm doing things different when you're just doing what everyone else does, with the exception of that you have history with these guys and you played. You're just taking food and money out of some other troll's mouth or some other content creator's mouth that could be doing the same thing. So shout out to Petros. I wish I would have seen that comment live. I don't know why it didn't show up on my comments, but shout out to him. Shout out to Mark, who's checking me out. Of course, shout out to my good guy Rob DeRay. By the way, shout out to Rob. I want to thank him. He was I don't think I mentioned it on my last episode. I went to Rob, if you don't know, he was a very funny commenter. hope he doesn't get mad at me mentioning this. But Rob, he's a principal at Nazareth High School in Brooklyn, and I was there at a career day. Got to talk to some of the kids and talk about my career, and that was a phenomenal event and phenomenal thing to be a part of. So shout out to Nazareth High School. Shout out to Rob. Fun character, but an actual serious person, with a serious job and doing a great job and doing a great work with the community. Work that he does as a principal, obviously, of a high school. It's very important in terms of being a big fixture in people's lives and a very important part of their lives. So massive shout out to Rob DeRay. Very, very thankful that you were able to bring me out last week. That was a lot of fun. And then, of course, I'm on Buzzer. So, again, I've been pushing Buzzer all episode, and there's a reason why we ran a little late today, so apologies. But Buzzer's a phenomenal, man. Phenomenal new app. Search Buzzer, BZZR. So not how you pronounce it, but this is a different spelling. BZZR is what you'll search on social media or search on your app store. Download the app, join up, and you'll get verified content from sports personalities of all walks and shapes and colors and fame levels. So we got folks like the great Josh Pate, Kenny Beecham, Kayla Braxton, or now Kayla Becker. They're doing content. MVP, the wrestler, has a new podcast. You got folks like them, and you got folks like me. I'm not gonna put me with anyone else that I feel like is like not on their level. Everyone else, they're doing awesome stuff, but you got folks like me on there as well, doing our thing. But it's a really cool app. It's just in its infancy stages, but the work that they've done already on this has been phenomenal. And the rocket ship's only going up for where Buzzer is going, and I thank them for the support they had with me. I thank them for this morning for getting me live on Buzzer, and it was like part of it is kind of my fault. I didn't text the right people when I should have texted them yesterday, and I tried to do it quickly this morning, and they worked as quick as they could to get me up on Buzzer this morning, which is why we were a little late today. But we ended up having a kick-ass show. So I'm really happy that we were able to get on Buzzer. Make sure you follow me on Buzzer. You can just search EJ Stewart. Right now, I think my username is still EJ205Prep. That's not the name I want. That's all my fault. I didn't think it would be a public username. I thought it'd be a personal username. But then now I'm like, this is the thing I'm going by. Maybe not the thing I should go by for various different reasons. But you can search EJ205Prep if you want to find me on Buzzer. That is where I'm at right now. Or just search EJ Stewart. You can find me. And I'm posting content on there. Some content you see from other services, but also some Buzzer exclusive stuff as well you're seeing posted on that. So make sure you check that out as well. And I think that's a good place to leave it for today, man. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of 40 Days and Counting. We'll be back next week with a new episode, Tuesday, 6 p.m. I'm pretty sure I got nothing happening Tuesday. Unlike last week when I just had this Daredevil event. But I should be back Tuesday live, 6 p.m. So make sure you keep it locked in there. Also, again, be sure to follow the YouTube page Generation Media. There'll be a new episode of Orange and Blue Bloods this weekend. There will also be me live on WFAN. So if you like listening to me on the radio, I'll be live on WFAN. That'll be midnight to 5 a.m. Saturday into Sunday morning. I'm EJ Stewart. This is a lot of fun. See you guys next week. Have a good weekend.